The entree this time is from Gustavino's in New York City. Executive chef Daniel Orr has worked in several well-respected French restaurants, both in the city and in France. In addition, he has developed a line of spice blends and has written a cookbook. Here is his Côte de Boeuf. The chef begins by seasoning a huge piece of prime rib.
So what I'll do is I'll first start by taking some room temperature butter, some of the sea salt, and the pepper mix, and then making kind of a paste out of that. And as you can see, I've scored the fat on the side of the Côte de Boeuf. You're going to really rub this nice seasoned butter all over the Côte de Boeuf, the prime rib. Okay, and it's best to have your meat out about a half an hour before you start roasting it, so it gets almost room temperature in the center, and that will allow it to cook evenly, so you don't start with a very cold center in the meat. So that's one of the important steps in this dish. One of the other important steps is to have a good cast iron skillet, which will retain the heat, because you have a large piece of meat here. When you put it on the skillet, if you have a thin skillet, it's going to suck all the heat out of the pan, and it's going to stick, and it's not going to caramelize properly. So that's another important part of this dish. And we're going to start searing it. And what I do is I always sear it on top of the stove. Now, if you're at home, you've got to smoke. This will really smoke up your kitchen. So what you want to do is just sear it on top of the stove, and then we're going to throw it in the oven. Just want to get some color on there. And then finally, you turn it on the fat side, because one of the best things about a piece of meat like this is you have that nice coating of fat on the outside, which gets really crispy when you cook it. And if you cook it properly, most of the fat will cook out of the meat, and what you'll be left with is that nice, crisp, almost like a chip of fat on the outside, which is really the sign of a good piece of roasted meat. Drain out the excess fat.
The meat will go into a 550-degree oven for 30 to 45 minutes.
And then I'm going to throw in my mirepoix and roast the meat on top of that mirepoix, which will allow it to continue to cook, but it won't burn on the bottom of the pan. Then I'll put it in the oven. While you're waiting for that to cook, you can finish up your side dishes, which are the potato mousseline and the fricassee of vegetables. The mousseline, it's just your standard potato puree. Here at the restaurant, we use a tamis, which is like a screen that we take a spatula and we push all the potatoes through it. It makes really, really fine potato puree. And we finish it with some butter and some reduced cream. This is cream that's been reduced by half, so it's not on the Weight Watchers diet. And what you do is you just stir in that cream, and you get what we call a mousseline, which means like a mousse, very light and fluffy. You can see how the consistency of this is really nice and moussey, and it's not like your standard mashed potato. And then for the fricassee of vegetables, what I'm going to do is take some truffle butter, which I have about a tablespoon. And this, when you put it in the pan, you can really smell that aroma of the truffles. It's really wonderful. I'm going to put in some wild mushrooms. Here I have shiitake, oyster, and a few ceps, which are porcinis in Italian. Those lightly color. And then I have all these seasonal vegetables. I have baby carrots, zucchini, patty pan squash, some wax beans, asparagus, tomatoes. And we're just going to toss those with the mushrooms. Now, in the restaurant, what we do is we have a big cauldron of boiling water, and we just drop the vegetables in very quickly and then put them in the saute pan. It's a quick way of heating them up, and you always should make sure that when you're cooking your vegetables, use very salted water to really bring out the flavor of the vegetables. Just going to toss those in, and then we finish it with a little lemon zest and just a touch of coriander. About 15 to 20 minutes into the cooking, we're going to take some fresh herbs. I've got thyme and bay leaf and some garlic. And I'm just going to crush this slightly. You don't want to chop it up fine, otherwise it will burn in the pan. And I'm going to take the back of my knife and just tap the thyme and the bay leaf. And what this does is it releases the natural oils, which are what perfumes the roast. And I'm just going to take that and toss it in with my roast and allow that to continue to cook about 15 minutes. The other thing I've done is I've turned the roast over once during the cooking. Now you see I've got nice caramelization on the roast. My herbs have caramelized. Vegetables have gotten caramelized, gives them a nice color. And that's what's going to really perfume my sauce. So another important part of doing a roast is to allow it to rest after you take it out of the oven. And you can see all that nice brown on the bottom of the pan. That's what's going to give your sauce all the flavor. So I take a little bit of red wine. The red wine's going to give you a nice acid to the sauce, which will cut the richness of the meat. Let that reduce down. When that almost gets dry, I'm going to add the veal. You can get this sometimes in supermarkets. They sell frozen glaze. It's always best to make your own. Basically what you do is you take a veal stock and you reduce it all the way down until it gets syrupy. And they sell it now in the frozen, in gourmet shops. They sell it frozen. And a couple tablespoons. Now this roast, sliced thin, if you have a several course meal, could feed 3 to 4 people. We at the restaurant serve it for 2. It's a Côte de Boeuf for 2. But it would easily, if you have a multi-course meal, if you're going to have kind of like a 3 or 4 course meal at home, you could do that for 4 people and just serve 2 slices per person. And since the potatoes are so rich and the sauce is so rich, you really don't need a lot of meat.
The sauce is finished with butter, a little more red wine, then strained.
I put about half of the vegetables in the bottom. And what this does is it keeps the Côte de Boeuf from sliding around too much. And then topping it, with the nice Côte de Boeuf, some of your fresh herbs that have crisped up in the sauté pan. Finish putting the rest of your vegetables on there. And then topping it with those wonderful slices of truffle.
Truffle was added to the sauce before presentation.
A little extra sauce around for presentation. And just dish out some of the potato mousseline. Okay, and we send these out into the dining room for the waiters to present.